Hi, I'm Adrian from Blockworx, and in this video I'm going to show you how our new scheduler works. Our scheduler is a really powerful way to automate all our features in Blockworx. So anything you build in a block, you can now automate, which means you can take basically the human element out of maybe inputting something every minute or whatever thing you might want to automate, fetch rules from somewhere. So in this example, what we're going to do is have basically a weld machine, and we're going to track the up and down time of it, and we're going to register whenever it's down or up, and we will then build a graph out of that, so then we can get a quick view of how often this machine is up or down. So firstly, I'm going to go straight to the module which we created in the previous video, and we'll just say weld machine maintenance. I'm going to keep this really simple. Keep the terms as generic as possible. So just keep in mind whatever you have in mind to build something like this could apply to yourself. Um, could be just field name changes or whatever. So let's just do the first one. We will say machine A. Sorry, machine name. The next field we'll create is a checkbox, and we would say status. Say checked value is 1, unchecked value is 0. And we'll just say tick if machine is live. Next thing we will do is, well, let's just put in one more field, comment. And that could be if we have to, make a comment of why the machine might be down or whatever. So we might just change the machine name to a drop down. So we'll just say weld machine is one of them. And we can say heat sealing machine. So this is a pretty basic block. The idea of it is that we can just input the status of a machine. Let's just say it's live. There's no need for a comment in that situation. But maybe later on it's not live, so we leave that unticked and we'll say something like down for maintenance. But then once the machine is live again, we will go back and we'll say machine is live, maintenance complete. Again, this is a very, very basic way of tracking this information. There's other things we could do. Maybe another person might want to not do a new entry every time. They might want to edit the record instead. I personally like the whole idea of that every piece of activity is tracked. That's what Blockworx is good for as well. And I'm going to show you in a minute how we're going to utilize that information as well and build a live graph out of that. So now we've a very basic maintenance tracker set up. We'll go back to the module and set up our next block, which is going to get information from this block and track it, and eventually we'll have a graph out of that information. So let's just say uptime monitoring. Next thing I'll do is create a field, which will be a plain data field. And we would say machine. And I'm going to start with the weld machine. So that's the default value. And I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to trigger, there's a parameter there, trigger rules on the first initiation of the field. So what this is going to do is once the word weld machine comes into the block, when you load the page, it's going to apply all the rules on this field using that value weld machine. So next I'm going to say current status. And we will make this a plain data field as well. Next thing we will do is, let's say the time. So let's just say time. So I'm going to do a rule for this machine, and it's going to be populate another field with data from another block. So we're going to go to the weld machine maintenance block. The data required is the status. The local field we're populating is the status, and what needs to match to get this value is the machine. So you'll see as soon as I load the page that this will come into effect. So you can see here current status is 1. If I go back to the other block, and let's just say the machine is down again. So let's say down for repair. And I refresh this page. You can see 0. So next thing I will do is I will automate this, or sorry, I will do a manual one first. So I'm just going to pretend that someone has to come along and make note of this every 5 minutes. So let's say 14:45. Current status is 0, which means it's down. Next we say 14:50. Now we've just spotted a little problem here. It's not calling the rules, so it's not getting the status after we submit. So if I click submit here, it says NA. So to get around that, we need to do one more small setting. Machine, and we're going to trigger the rules after submitting. So what that does is it's going to try and get the status again once we're finished submitting. So now we'll carry on what we were doing. It's 14:50. See, now we're getting 0. So let's change this. Weld machine, say it's live, repair complete. So we'll just refresh this. And now we're getting our time. So let's just say 14:55, 15:00, 15:05, and it's up. And so what we're doing now is we're we're automatically getting the current status of the machine and we're tracking it here. This is still quite laborious, as you can imagine, and the whole idea of this is to show you how to begin to automate this. So the next thing I'm going to go to is our scheduler. Scroll all the way down to the bottom and you'll see Manage Block Scheduler. We're going to create a new record every time. Select the frequency. We're going to do it every 5 minutes. And then we want to select all these options. So apply block initiation values means, for instance, the value I set up that time, like the default value, which was weld machine, we want to apply that. So the idea of the scheduler is we're creating a new record every time in this example. The other example is you can go through existing records, but we'll talk about that in another video. We want to apply our field actions, which is our rules, parameters, everything like that. And we want to, in this case, this one doesn't matter. This is if we want to send a mail alert or we want to send data to another block, update something else. We can apply it, but it's not going to do anything for now. But maybe we might expand on it in another video and do a mail alert or update somewhere else, reduce stock or something. And I'll use my own name for the person that we want to submit data on behalf of. So I've kind of done things a little the wrong way around here because these times are actually after the current time. So the turn time is 13:54. So I'm going to pause this video and I'm going to let the scheduler run for a few minutes. It's going to have to be, I have 5-minute intervals picked. So that's going to create a new record every 5 minutes. And I will, every now and again, I will give this an update with the status. And what that will end up doing is give you all the live feed of what the person is doing here. So I'm going to pause now and I'll be back in a while. So I'm back and I have let the scheduler be running for the last 40 minutes or so. What I did after I paused the video was I deleted those manual records I put in and just let it run as is. So as we can see, the latest status is 1, which is this one. One thing I forgot to do, which I want to do now, is add the date. And the reason is when we build our graph, I want to be able to filter by what day it is. What I might do is cheat a little and just update these record date. But after that, the date will automatically get populated. So let's edit this block again. And do date. Just date. And what this will do is the next record will populate this date, which will, at the moment it's 246, so the next record is going to be 250. And in the meantime, what I'm going to do is also just fix these ones myself because I only thought to add the date afterwards. So I'll pause the video again and I'm going to leave it running for just a little while longer. I'll maybe add update this 1 or 2 more times, and then after that we'll build the graph out of this information. I'm back again with a bunch of records created. I did cheat a bit by updating some of the older ones with the current date. I just wanted to be able to build a neat graph, but now it's automatically populating the date. So it's actually 3:19 at the moment. So if I refresh the page in another minute, we'll see the latest one. In fact, what I'll do, if it's not too late, is I'll give it a status down. So now we'll give it one more minute and I'll refresh. Still on 3:19. I'm watching the clock here. Now we're on 3:20, so now I can refresh. And we can see the status down, current date, and the time. So the next thing I'm going to do is build a graph with this information. I'm going to use the same block to build the graph. So we're going to make some changes to this. First thing I'm going to do is make this full width. And then I'm going to hide everything. And I'm hiding everything because we're not ever supposed to be actually manually inputting into this block. Next thing I will do is change the amount of records we see. So at the moment it usually defaults to 10, but we'll change it to 50. And I'm going to apply one or two more settings. So I'm going to hide the form when it's loaded. Hide form on page load. So now when I go to the front end, we're just going to see the data straight away. That's the user that created. So that's the user that we set when we set up the scheduler. We can actually hide that too. So hide, that's in the data display settings. Hide user ID, hide the timestamp, because we're actually, this is the raw timestamp of the record, but we're actually doing our own timestamp instead. So now when I go back, we have the machine, the status, the time, the date. Next thing I'm going to do is build a graph out of this information. So these are hidden on the front end, but we still get to see the fields when we're in the back edit side. But now we're going to build a graph. So chart advanced, chart 1, and live uptime. Let's choose the chart height. We'll just say 500. And we will use a smooth line chart. The x-axis is going to be the values from another block. So in this case, it's the same block. So we're building the x-axis using the time stamps. So it's going to get all the timestamps and then lay them out on the x-axis. We'll show you later on in this video how to do more with kind of x-axis, but for now we'll just use this. Sometimes you can load it using a button. We'll just do that in this case, refresh. And now we're going to submit the items to count. So what we're going to say is the block we're getting the data from is uptime monitoring. We're counting total numeric, so we're going to count the ones and zeros. There's only going to be one for every record. So it's the current status is what contains the values that we're going to count. And we're counting against the time. So that's the x-axis. And in this case, just for now, we're just going to count all the records for the time. And let's submit that. I want to go back to the front end and click. We can change the add new to something else. And now we can see the uptime and downtime of the machine, the weld machine. So what we're going to do next is just make this a little more filtered and maybe controlled. So we're going to introduce the date into this graph. So what I'll do is click edit here. And we'll just say, we'll call it like choose date. So this is going to be the date that we want to filter by. So when we're looking at different days, we can see what the uptime, downtime was like. So choose date. I'll move this up above the graph field. I'm now going to edit the graph. I'm going to delete this because we're going to build the count in a slightly different way. Very similar, but this time we're going to take into account the date as well. We're going to hide the button, hide the refresh chart button, and I'll explain to you how we're going to trigger the chart in a minute. So we're going to build the count again. So again, the block we're choosing is uptime monitoring. We're going to count the total of numeric fields. What field contains the values we're counting? It's the current status. What field contains the data we're counting against the x-axis? That's the time. And instead of looking up all data, this time we're going to look up against the date. So in this case, we're asking the block to check all values using the date field that we just created. Sorry, not the date field, the choose date, because this is the one we're filtering by. No, I'm confusing myself a bit here. So this is the date field. So that's the one we're looking up, and this is the one we're using as the search key to look up. So you'll see in a minute once we get this going. Click submit. So the button to actually load the graph is gone. So nothing's going to happen for a minute. So what I have to do is add one more parameter to this block. Choose date, parameters. And this is a handy parameter for triggering charts. So this field triggers local data charts. So what that means is when you change the value of a field, it'll trigger any charts that are associated with it. We didn't have to change it in this case because it initialized, but you'll see here, if I change to 4, we have no data because we only started tracking today. And we go back to 5. And we're back. And now we can see the uptime and downtime. And at the moment we're at 348. So if I bring the status back up again, let's say repair complete. I'll just pause the video for another 2 minutes because we're going to be waiting. So it's now 3:52. I'm just going to change the time and change it back. So I don't even have to refresh the page because it gets the live data. And as you can see, we're now gone back up to uptime again. Our next phase is going to be that we're going to be able to have this feeding automatically using WebSockets without anyone having to click anything. So this is kind of phase one of building a live graph with uptime. Other small things, some people might prefer our other skin. You can change skin to our bright skin. I'll just refresh the page to allow the colors to refresh and stuff. And this is the other one. We're going to make some more improvements in our next video where we can control we'll say what's going to be in the x-axis here, because this is only 1 hour and already it's going to be an hour and a half. We need a way to have just maybe controlled one entry per hour or whatever. But also don't forget you can zoom in and out of this. So some people might prefer this. They have straight up access. But just to kind of give an overall summary of what we've achieved is it's an automatic scheduler to keep getting live data from the weld machine maintenance status. And what that means is someone can give an instant view of live data, and they can still run report on the real information here if they want. And there's so many ways this could be done as well. Perhaps we wouldn't need to have a new record every time here. Perhaps maybe they just check the machine, press a button, press submit, and it just updates the same record every time. But then we still have our live tracker getting those values constantly, which means we have a kind of a historic record. So there's so many different things you can do, and in the next video as well, we're going to add more rules and do more things and show you how the scheduler can be much more powerful. Maybe even send an email if it's down for longer than a certain amount of time, or we'll come up with some ideas anyway to get a bit more creative. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks. Bye bye.